Call in by clicking the link in the stream's description. The professor wants to hear from you.
Beginnings on the cusp. Not too old to adjust. Old dog, new tricks. Remember, I was just a pup. Something dirty in my cup. Clean soul, good car.
Isn't it lovely? I ain't looking back and focus on what's in front of me. Everybody dates a number, but I'm still here luckily. I know that God got me, so I'm in good company. Isn't it lovely?
Welcome, and thank you once again for joining me. I am Professor Bear, and this is A Bear's Thought. And today, we are being sponsored by the one, the only, Chops Trading Cards. I know by now you all are familiar with Chops Trading Cards. And if you're not, why are you not? Because they are the number one in the game of making personal trading cards. If you need it for just to have for yourself, if you run a promotion and want to have your wrestlers on a trading card, Chops Trading Cards and print on design is the best way to go. And with that being said, they love the professor so much that they have given me my own percentage off, and I'm so glad to share it with you. If you put in Bear 15, you get 15% off your entire order. I mean, is that not amazing? You can go ahead and do that, and they will set you up. And I guarantee you, once you do business with them, you will keep going back for more. That's Chops Trading Cards and print on demand. Now, I am blessed and very thankful to have my guest on today. He is Greg Anthony. Greg, how are you doing today, sir?
Just like you, brother, I'm blessed. Another day above ground. So,
man, I love it. Then, especially after last week and a lot of people going home, I'm glad to be here and still, like you said, be above ground. So, please tell my audience about yourself, sir.
My name is the Golden Boy, Greg Anthony. I've been a professional wrestler for 25 years. I've had close to probably over 4,000 matches now. Wrestling promoter, booker, historian, trainer, jack of all trades, I guess, that kind of thing. Just one of those things that I've loved professional wrestling my whole life, and God kind of opened that door for me, and I was able to walk through. It's been an amazing journey.
Well, so that is so wonderful to hear. I want to start with how No, well, no. I want to start. How did you become a wrestling fan?
Uh, I've said this many times. Like my earliest memories of life aren't of a new bike or a birthday cake or any of that kind of stuff. My earliest memories of life are sitting on my grandmother's knee, watching professional wrestling. And I was actually originally born in Southern Illinois, and in Southern Illinois we got WWF. Obviously, we got Crockett, and then we got World Class. So for me sitting on her knee, watching the Arn Andersons and the Flairs and the Bobby Eatons and that kind of stuff. So it was one of those things that me and her are actually the only two wrestling fans in the family, and we just always connected on it. And she's 82 or 83 now, and she still comes to our shows most weekends and sits on the front row. She's been a wrestling fan for 70 plus years, so 78 plus years or something like that. So that's my earliest memories, and that's how I became a wrestling fan.
Man, well, let me say this. First off, congratulations, still having your grandmother around. You enjoy her, and she enjoys you. So you mentioned that you remember the Crockett's, World Class, and WWE, or WWF. My apologies. What were you? Who was your favorite wrestler at that time, Frank?
Well, I mean, I was the atypical kid. I loved all the good guys and hated all the bad guys. The way it's supposed to be. So, like as a kid, I loved all the good guys with face paint. I loved Sting, and I loved Ultimate Warrior, and I loved the Road Warriors, and I loved all that kind of stuff. I loved Ricky Steamboat and Brian Pillman and the Von Erichs and all that kind of stuff. What I come to realize later in life, when I got into a teenager and into wrestling, was I was actually more drawn to the seamless Southern heels that we all love. It was the Ric Flair, and then the Arn Anderson, and the Bobby Eaton, and the Ted DiBiase, and the Tully Blanchards, and that mold of professional wrestler is really what ultimately drew me in, and that's who I ultimately end up patterning my own abilities after.
That is amazing. And what I like from that is you said getting older, you realize how much you were drawn to their style, their gimmick, and how they work. How did you yourself get from being a fan to getting in the wrestling business?
So when I broke in, this is, early 2000, right? Late 99, early 2000. And just like a lot of people at that time, because you got to understand, like back in 99, 2000, there wasn't a wrestling school on every corner like there is now. The internet was still relatively new. You know what I mean? So there wasn't a real outlet of, well, where do you go to train to be a professional wrestler? So, of course, we fell into the same mold as like the Hardys and guys like that. We were backyard wrestling. You know what I mean? And we weren't doing it long, and we weren't doing anything crazy by any means. We were on a trampoline, and I was doing drop toe holds on a trampoline. I wasn't doing anything insane like some of these people that you see videos of.
Right.
But so me and a group of my friends and people I grew up with, we were all doing that. Well, at the same time, Memphis Championship Wrestling was a developmental territory, and they were traveling around the South, and they came to our hometown, New Bern, Tennessee, once a month. And this is when they had Daniel Bryan still as the American Dragon in the mask. They had R-Truth when he was K-Crush. They had William Regal. They had Reckless Youth. They had just, if I went through the entire roster of this talent, you would think I was making it up, because it's just insane the amount of talent that was in Memphis Championship Wrestling at the time. And they would come to New Bern, Tennessee to the Armory, and they were only drawing about 30, 40 people every month. And one of my buddies, one of my best friends, me and him were trying to break into wrestling. obviously, we've been doing the backyard stuff. His dad was a police officer in our hometown. So he went up to the promoter, Terry Golden, and he said, "Hey, listen, my son and his friend are trying to get into wrestling. Can you help them out?" So Terry Golden, being the smart guy that he is, he had us come in for a workout one day, and he saw what we could do, what we knew and what we didn't know, right? And he said, "Hey, listen, when we come to town next month, you guys are going to have an intermission match."
Oh, wow.
I said, "Okay." So me and my buddy went around for the next month in our hometown, and we told everybody, "Hey, we're professional wrestlers. We're going to be on Memphis Championship Wrestling. We're doing this, we're doing that. You know, we're going to wrestle." So we go to the next month, and sure enough, we're in intermission match. Intermission match is semi-main event, by the way.
Oh, wow.
Because 200 people showed up to the arena that night instead of the regular 30 to 40. So they made us intermission. Intermission match was semi-main event, basically, like I said. And like he still protected the business though, like because we weren't technically trained and we weren't one of the boys yet. So we had our own separate locker room away from everybody. And like some guys obviously didn't like that we were there. Some guys didn't care, you know, that kind of thing.
Right.
Reckless Youth was the only guy that came over to our locker room and said, "Hey, I'm glad you guys are deciding to get in the business. You know, good luck to you." You know, that kind of thing. And I've always held a high level of respect for Reckless Youth just for being that guy that came over and did that. But like even William Regal, you know, after our match, you know, after the show, we're helping take down the ring and that kind of stuff. And he came up to us and was giving us advice on stuff. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So I mean, it was you know, it was an amazing experience, obviously, because this is all me and my buddy ever wanted to do was be professional wrestlers. And we did that for several months. And then eventually Memphis Championship Wrestling lost their developmental deal. And then when that happened, we caught on with a local promotion and really started our training and getting to work every week and polishing things out and that stuff. So that's where it all started.
That has to be the most unique way of getting into the business.
Yeah.
And on top of that, to be able to promote yourself and draw a house to the show is super crazy.
Yeah. I mean, and like I tell everybody, like that is not the way you're supposed to break into professional wrestling.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like I run a training school because after obviously that happened, I went and did stuff with Dr. Tom and I tag team with Bobby Eaton for 2 years, and I went and got every bit of training that I could after that, obviously. So I tell guys all the time, this is not the way you're supposed to break in, but nevertheless, this is how I got here.
That is super. Like I said, super amazing. That's blown away. So I can guess, but I'm gonna have to ask, how was the match?
You know, actually, it wasn't as bad as you think it would be. Like we did a lot of good stuff. Like all of our stuff looked good. It's just we didn't know how to do. We didn't understand the psychology of a lot of it. So like, who was the good guy? Who was the bad guy? Like I was supposed to be the bad guy, but I was doing Mexican head scissors and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like we didn't understand those concepts yet. You know what I mean?
Right.
But like for everything we did, you know, I did a super kick. We did this. We did that. We did a couple of different moves, and everything we did looked good. It's just it was all misplaced. It was just a jumble of stuff.
Right. That is amazing. And I don't know why it come to me to ask you this question. Please tell me that somebody recorded that.
So my buddy, the one I'm talking about, John Michael, his family recorded it, but we haven't been able to find it.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? It got recorded. We watched it early on. I remember us sitting down and watching it, but like we haven't been able to find it since, you know, so hopefully maybe one day it'll show up, but we haven't been able to relocate it since.
So that, oh God, that just blows my mind. So with that being said, and that's the way you broke into the business from there, with your training, how long did you train before you got back into the ring to wrestle?
Well, and the thing was, because we had already done that, and Memphis Championship Wrestling had already let us wrestle, it was harder for other promotions to not let us wrestle. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because Memphis Championship Wrestling was the biggest company in the area at the time. So, like, the fact that we wrestled on it, you know, kind of gave us a little bit of credibility, even though we weren't fully trained. So, like, we were able to catch on with a company that was going to let us basically learn on the fly, as far as we're going to come to training, we're going to work on our stuff, but then we're still going to be able to wrestle every Saturday night.
Oh, wow.
So we were able to train and wrestle and just kind of start polishing things out and start working on things and getting everything in accordance.
So I know, like you said, that some of the guys just didn't care. Some were most of the guys understanding or friendly to help learn the psychology of the business, or were they just, pardon my French, dicks?
Well, I mean, us coming from quote unquote backyard wrestling, of course, backyard wrestling had a huge stigma to it anyway, and we didn't know that. I mean, we were just kids trying to get in wrestling, you know. I mean, someone let us wrestle, we were gonna wrestle, you know. Well, like I said, there wasn't like there was a definitive place that we could go and get trained at that time. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So some guys were just really standoffish. Like, they weren't going to cause a scene necessarily, but you could tell a lot of people in the original companies didn't really like us being there and felt like we kind of cheated our way in, that kind of thing. But once we were there for a couple months and they saw the talent that we had and how much passion we had for it, and the fact that we were getting trained and starting to go to workouts and doing all the things like we knew was necessary,
right.
You know, then they all came around. You know what I mean? Like there was I can't think of one person necessarily that was quote unquote, like you said, a dick to me just because of that fact. They were a little standoffish at first, and maybe they didn't like the idea, but eventually we earned our stripes, you know?
Right. So you're training, you're wrestling. Tell me the journey from starting to learn the business to catching on with the psychology. Tell me where you went from there as far as your career goes.
So it was really just, like I said, just getting better and better. I had a misconception when I was younger in the beginning. I came from basketball. I played basketball in high school. So, like, the way obviously it works in basketball is, hey, you're a good basketball player, you know, so you become a starter on the high school team, and then you're a starter, and maybe you're a star in high school, and then you get to go to college and you get to play college basketball, and then if you're that good, then maybe you get to go to the NBA and stuff like that, right? So, like, my misconception in the beginning is that's how wrestling worked, that I need to become the best guy in this area first before I could go to WWE and do that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? And that's not the way it works. WWE will hire someone that's now, especially, they'll hire someone that's never stepped in a wrestling ring in their life and train from scratch.
Right.
You know, so there was always just like that kind of thing. Everyone was always saying they want to go to WWE. They want to go to WWE. So for me, that was one of my things too. But like I said, I felt like I had to get to this certain level in this area first before I was going to attempt to go there.
Right.
But with that being said, and this is kind of where we find out much, much later, and in 2017, I ended up having major heart surgery.
Oh, wow.
And I was only 36 years old. I was 35 when we found out, and I had surgery when I was 36. And it come to find out that I was actually born with a heart defect. I was actually born with no right arteries. So I just have left arteries in my heart. And looking back on it now, I was always, like we talk about, God puts you in the right situations, and he numbers your steps for you.
Right.
You know, I was never in WWE shape. You understand? Like, I was never that guy, you know, and for some reason, I was very headstrong against steroids and doing anything of that nature. And, I would talk to people that worked for WWE or were scouting for WWE, and I had an opportunity to be in front of some of those people, and they always said the same thing. It was always get bigger. Well, get bigger was code for, hey, do steroids because, we want you to be 30, 40, 50 pounds of muscle heavier, that kind of thing. And you got to think I was probably 180 pounds at this point. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, but I was always, like I said, I was always very headstrong against doing steroids, and God knew what he was doing, because if I would have done steroids with my heart condition, I definitely would have died, because they said that if I wouldn't have played basketball through high school and I wouldn't have started wrestling when I was 18 and I was wrestling 20, 30-minute matches, that kind of stuff, I basically built my heart up cardiovascularly so much that what I have should have killed me in my 20s. So for a normal person. And then if you combine steroids with that, I would most likely be dead. We wouldn't be having this conversation. So, like I said, God knows what he's doing. And I think that every day. So I don't look at not going to WWE or not being able to do that. I don't look at that as a regret anymore or anything like that. I look at it as okay, I was meant to be here right now where I am and what I'm doing. And that's been the biggest blessing of all.
Oh, wow. That is amazing to hear. And I'm glad that you had the mental strength to resist what most people will be like, hey, I do this, I can get to my dream.
I wish I could sit here and tell you that it was mental strength, but it was honestly me just being, adversary. Like I didn't like people telling me that I was too small. I didn't like people telling me that I would never be whatever. I didn't like people telling me, well, you're not going to get over unless you're this, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. And I kind of made a career out of proving people wrong in that sense. You know what I mean? Like I've got to do some pretty amazing things for my resume. And like, it's all because I stuck to my guns on a lot of that kind of stuff, so I wish I could say it was this big, it was really because like I had one guy tell me one time, he's like, you're good, but you got to get on steroids. You're not going to be anything if you don't get on steroids, blah, blah, blah. And started going on about it. And he was a big jack guy. And I just looked at him. I said, well, you're not going to be anything unless you learn how to lock up. Because he was horrible. I mean, he was not a good wrestler, and he spent more time in the gym than he did at training in the ring and working on his craft. And we were just two ends of the spectrum, Right. And like, that always bugged me when he told me that. It was like, who are you to critique my wrestling? I'm going to get over no matter what, So
again, like you said, it was definitely a blessing and where God wanted you to be. I think you're selling yourself short, because if you didn't have that mentality and did things a little your way, and you, like you said, you wouldn't be here. So again, I think that's a person that, because sometimes we all have our personalities where people are trying to give us advice and we think we know better.
Yeah.
But again, sometimes if you don't do that, what in the world, where would you be? So,
right.
So he wants to, Sat wants to know, what did you learn from Bobby Eaton being with him for 2 years?
So, like I said, Bobby was actually one of my heroes growing up. You know what I mean? Like I mentioned him in that first thing of the guys I remember watching when I was a kid. And I just, like I said, I was always drawn to him and a lot of different guys, but like him specifically was one of them. And before we started tagging, we actually had a match against each other probably 5 years before we started tagging. And like, it went really, really well. And like, he was so, so nice. You know what I mean? Like, and the promoter, bless his heart, he wanted Bobby, because he was the big baby face at the time. he wanted Bobby to beat me, and Bobby said he wouldn't. He said I would rather him pin me.
Oh, wow.
So that was the initial, dealings with Bobby. And then what happened was Bobby was moving to Arkansas, and he was going to pick a young guy to team with in Arkansas, and he was going to pick a young guy in Tennessee, and he was going to do 2 tag teams, take bookings on both sides and do whatever. Well, the kid they picked for Arkansas, for some reason, somebody got in his ear or got in his head and told him it wasn't a good idea for him to tag with Bobby Eaton. I don't know. I never really asked him or got the full story on that, but that's what happened. So he turned it down basically. Jeez. And I just kind of, I'll do both, you know what I mean? Because I'm already wrestling Arkansas some anyway. I mean, I'll do them all, Right. So I benefited from that, and we became Midnight Gold, because I'm the Golden Boy Greg Anthony, Midnight Express, obviously. And for 2 years, we ran the roads, and what I really learned was Bobby Eaton was one of the greatest in-ring talents of all time, but he was a better person. He was legitimately, one of the nicest, most genuine, giving people you could ever. And something we should all aspire to be is like Bobby Eaton, not just in ring, but as the man as well. And the entire time we tagged, I never took a pin. He never allowed me to get beat.
Oh, wow.
Every time a promoter said, we want to Midnight Gold, we want you guys to go under, we'll pin Greg. He would go, no, we're not pinning Greg. We're pinning me. And he would tell me afterwards, he said, this isn't for me. I'm Bobby Eaton. I'm going to always be Bobby Eaton. You know what I mean? This is for you. I want you to come out the other side of this better than you were, because Bobby, this was his last 2 years, by the way, that he wrestled. I was actually in his last match. And the whole thing was, it was a way for Bobby to still be able to wrestle on the card and be part of the show without him just having to do autograph signings. You know what I mean? He could be in a tag team. I could do the brunt of the work, you know what I mean? And he could do his thing. And it was my way of giving back in that sense too. And he, the greatest thing about Bobby Eaton too was there'd be sometimes I'd be in a tag match and I'd be wrestling some guys that I knew, right? And we would be going, you know what I mean? We would be going, and I'd look over in the corner and Bobby had that look in his eye like it was 1985 again, right? And I would go tag Bobby, and Bobby would get in the ring and he would start going too. You know what I mean? He took it and he would take it to that next level for what he was doing. You know what I mean? Because he loved wrestling so much that there was no way he was going to let Bobby Eaton be the weak link in a tag match. You know what I mean? He still wanted to show that he was Bobby Eaton. You know what I mean?
Right.
And we just had an amazing time together. He became, not like I said, it wasn't just that he was a tag partner, but he became a really good friend of mine, and it was amazing.
Man.
And it sent me on a completely different trajectory with my career.
That is amazing. I've never, in the whole time of me watching wrestling, knowing wrestling, being blessed to meet wrestlers, bookers, what have you, I've never heard one single bad thing about Bobby Eaton.
Yeah.
Never. And that is so rare. I mean, even with Ricky Steamboat.
Yeah.
And Ricky is one of the best or nicest people out there. I've actually heard one or two, and I think it was the people, and of course not him. They had an issue with him, but it truthfully never heard anything negative about Bobby Eaton, and actually got to meet him myself. Like you said, he's just a genuine, sweet person.
Let me tell you one story that I think is just, it sums up Bobby so much. And this is not even my story. It's a buddy of mine's story, but like, I love telling it so much because I think it really encapsulates who he is. Bobby was on a show in the Mid-Atlantic area, like DC area, I think, somewhere like that. And like my buddy he was fixing to go out for his match, but he couldn't find his shirt, his tank top that he went out and went to the ring in. And he's kind of looking around for him. Bobby comes up, "Hey, what are you doing?" He goes, "Well, I'm looking for my shirt. I can't find it." So Bobby spends the next few minutes trying to help him find his shirt, right?
Right.
And my buddy goes, I just forget it. I got to go to the ring and wrestle. So he goes to the ring. He wrestles 15, 20 minutes, whatever. Comes to the back. Bobby Eaton's still looking for his shirt.
Oh, wow.
And that's what I'm saying. That's the kind of Bobby. That's the kind of guy Bobby was. You know what I mean?
You're right. I have a Bobby Eaton story, and I tell you it real quick. So it was wrestling fest in Charlotte, North Carolina, and me and my buddies. And the way everybody got to meet the wrestlers, they had the wrestlers sat on stage, and we could walk up, and everybody just had to walk down to each wrestler. So they had the Midnight Express. They had Bobby and they had Dennis and Jim Cornette. They were the last three people. At first it was Jim, then Dennis, then Bobby. So walked up to Cornette. He was very nice. Actually talked to him the night before. Real nice. Went to Dennis, talked to him. Walked to Bobby, talked to Bobby. Well, as soon as I got done with Bobby and I'm walking off, I just stopped. And I was like, spun around like, holy shit, he speaks. Jim Cornette just happened to be drinking a Coke and spit that Coke everywhere.
Right.
Bobby gave me a death stare that would scare anybody, because I legitimately thought he was about to jump up. And I'm like, oh crap. Then he started laughing. So I was like, oh, cool. He got the joke. Okay. So the next day, me and my buddy were trying to find an ATM. We walking around, and all of a sudden, made the corner, Bobby was standing there. And Bobby just looked at me. He's like, oh, yeah, I've been looking for you. He like, you thought you was pretty funny with that joke, didn't you? He said, I'm about to beat you up. I'm legit, me and my buddy now, I'm 6'4". And at that time, I was in my probably mid-30s. So I'm decently in shape, nothing major. But right. I'm like, this is a trained wrestler who legitimately could actually beat somebody up. So in my head, I'm like, oh crap, I'm about to get beat up by Bobby Eaton. And my buddy's standing there, we both looking at each other like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? And then Bobby walked up to me and he gave me a hug. Oh my God. I was like, you had me. I think you got me. You got me, man. He just hugged me. He's like, that was funny. I'm glad to get run into you. Sweetheart of a man.
Yeah, we used to, of course, especially when you're in the car with him, I'm asking 1,000 questions because I want to know everything. And Bobby, if you go back and watch before he got with Cornette, you know what I mean? And he was on his own and stuff like that. He actually was a good promo. You know what I mean? It's just, and I asked him about it one time. I was like, why didn't you talk more? And he was like, why would I? It's like I had Jim Cornette and I had Stan and Stan and Dennis both were good on the mic too. He said, I would rather, take it away from me and let them talk, because I'm going to get my stuff in the ring. You know what I mean? So like he lowered himself on his promos and stuff like that to let them shine on that part of it so he could shine more wrestling wise. Yeah. And that's what's great about being part of a team when you work like that. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And he definitely, his work ethic, man, just, it was phenomenal. So after the tag team with Bobby, where did you go? Did you go to singles and start doing, like you said, he was helping you and giving you pretty much a great rub? Where did you go from there?
So what had happened was there was a company called Traditional Championship Wrestling in Arkansas, and they were starting to make some headway. They were doing some good shows, and things were starting to click for them. And like we were trying to get me and Bobby on that, but like the promoter, Matt Riviera, he didn't really know me, right? He wanted the Midnight Express. So he was kind of holding out for the Midnight Express. Like he didn't really want to use us. He wanted Midnight Express. So I just happened to find myself on a show with Matt Riviera in some BFE town in Arkansas somewhere, right? And it was one of those shows where you get to the show and then the promoter's like, hey guys, there's not too many people out there. I really can't pay anyone, but if you still want to wrestle, you can wrestle. And I'm Mr. Wrestling, so I want to wrestle. So I'm like, okay, I'll wrestle. I already drove the whatever 2 hours here. I'm going to wrestle. So I go out there. I think I'm first or second match, and I'm actually with the promoter's trainee, and we go out there and just tear the house down for the people that were there. Have a really, really good match, and I get to the back, and Riviera goes, "Hey, that was really good. How long you been training the kid?" And I said, he's not my kid. He's the promoter's training. He's not mine. He goes, so you just met that guy today? I said, yeah. And you've never seen each other before? I was like, no. And you had that match with him? And I said, yeah. And then Matt Riviera booked us on everything from there on out. So we went and worked for Matt Riviera as Midnight Gold at first. And then eventually when Bobby, obviously retired, which wasn't long after that, then I went to singles and TCW. And I was their first world junior heavyweight champion. I ended up being their international heavyweight champion. And then I ended up being tag champion with Matt Riviera. So I was a Triple Crown champion for TCW. And TCW was a national company. We were available in 50 million homes. In my opinion, my own personal opinion, at that time period, we were the third largest company in America because there was WWE, there was TNA, obviously, and then Ring of Honor and us. But I feel like we had a better Southern-based wrestling product than Ring of Honor did, obviously. And our production was better than Ring of Honor, too. So it was more of the wrestling that I liked and my friends liked was traditional championship wrestling. So I felt like we were number 3. At least we should have been in the conversation for it.
Right.
But yeah, it was an amazing time. It was top to bottom one of the best crews I've ever seen. We had, like I said, we had myself, we had Matt Riviera, Tim Storm, who ended up being NWA World Champion. We had John Saxon, who's a guy from Louisiana that's just amazing. We had Jason Kincaid. We had Matt Sigmund, from the Heat Seekers tag team now.
Yes,
Yeah, I mean, and then we had stars come in that they were just guys that were popping in to be on our show. They were actually part of our roster, like Lance Hoyt.
Oh, wow.
Lance Hoyt was our champion at one point. Tommy Dreamer was there. Zach Gallen, I had a program with Zach Gallen. There was just Hacksaw Jim Duggan was on most shows. These guys were actually a part of our crew. They weren't just coming to get a payday. Right. They were there to actually help build what we were doing. So it was an amazing time. And I benefited the most because I didn't look like anyone else on the show, so. What? I didn't catch what he said. What did he say on the?
That is interesting. So,
yeah, go ahead.
What? So you're having this great run and everything, and things are going well. What made you transfer from a wrestler to getting behind the scenes and promoting and stuff?
So I always was a part of the creative process of wrestling. Even when I was first getting started out, I was trying to help pitch ideas and I was coming up with this. And it wasn't just for me. I'd pitch stuff for other guys too. Right. And the promoters and the bookers, they all noticed that I had a knack for that. So they would all kind of help me, and some guys would teach me, hey, no, you need to do this, so that, and they would kind of mold me in that sense, you know. So I'd always been a part of the creative process of wrestling, and then eventually where someone actually offered me a full booking job, you know, with a company, and it just kind of went from there. In TCW, I was an assistant booker because Riviera was the booker, but I was the assistant booker. So we got to do a lot of fun stuff there. But I love booking. I think that booking is, we always talk about the lost art of professional wrestling. Booking is the number one lost art in wrestling. And I personally believe that there are probably less than 100 people in the United States right now that actually know how to book professional wrestling on a weekly basis, and something that can keep you coming, and how to develop talent and how to develop a character and coming up with gimmicks and keeping things fresh and stuff like that. I think it's the number one skill set that is lost in today's wrestling. A lot of people get online, and you know how this goes. A lot of people get online and was, well, I'm a great idea guy. I think so and so should be champion. Okay, that's great. Tell me how he can be champion. It's not putting a title on somebody. It's how are you going to make people care that he's champion? You know what I mean? What are you going to do to build that guy to be a champion? You can't just say, okay, here's the title. Okay, he's going to have matches now. Like there's a way to do all this, and it's different for everybody. You know, so it's a very specified thing, and I take a lot of great pride in the fact that I sat under learning trees like the Jim Cornettes and the J.J. Dillons and the Bill Dundees and, you know, stuff like that. Bill Watts, Gary Hart, you know what I mean? Like, these are all guys that I've studied and had chances to talk to, and I have their autobiographies, and I highlight the things that are psychology and booking, and I go back and study them again and stuff like that. So that's one of my biggest passions. Obviously, I'm still huge in ring, but like, booking is my number one thing.
That is a great point of where I will even throw myself in that mix of, I've watched wrestling for so long. I have to really be honest with myself. Yes, I love wrestling. I see a lot of things. I catch the psychology, but even with that being said, I don't have the years and years of doing it, the writing and stuff. And sometimes, like you said, as fans, oh man, I could do this. I watched this. I know this, blah, blah, blah. But like you said, there are certain elements, unless you grew up and learned, you will never be able to really gain that knowledge, I would say.
Absolutely.
And you can tell too when people, well, at least let me rephrase, I can tell when people think they know versus, hey, they study. You can see it in their programming and the way they do things. There is a big difference in that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like anything else. You know, if you don't have the experience in it, or you don't have a history of doing it, you know, and learning how to do it, you know, I don't, you know, like I said, sometimes I get messages to Pro Wrestling Mid-South Facebook, and they'll be like, oh yeah, I'd like to be involved in wrestling. I was like, oh, what would you want to train, or what do you want to do? And they're like, oh, I want to come up with storylines. Like, that's like telling me you want to start a brain surgery. You know what I mean? Like, how about you graduate high school first, and then, you know, we figure it out from there. You know, there's so much that goes into being a wrestling booker. You know, I'm a coach, I'm a politician, I'm, you know, everything. You know, I'm a minister too. I mean, we have our own. We're a Christian-based company, so you know, we have a ministry attached to our company. So, like, I minister to my guys, and like, hey, if you're having problems, come to me and we'll talk about it. You know, that kind of stuff. So there's just so much that goes into being a booker that people don't realize.
Very true. One of the things that you said that popped immediately in my head is a politician. And a lot of people do not understand that you have to know your audience, you have to know your wrestlers and what will sell and what will make the art where it blurs the line. And that's one thing so true that I think, as much as I love wrestling, I love where wrestling is today. I think we miss the art of blurring the line. Can we tell? And that's where, as a wrestling fan myself, I pop. If you fool me, I'm like, great. I never saw that coming, or dang, I missed this. And that's what really gets my juices going with storylines, because as much as I think I know there's more out there that I don't know. And some of the best surprises that I never saw coming, I pop tremendously.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing too. Like, and I tell guys all the time, it's not necessarily that we want somebody to believe for 2.5 hours, but if we can just get someone for that split second to believe what happened in front of them was real, and they have a genuine reaction. You know what I mean? Like I said, I told you about my heart issues. You know, a couple years after my heart issues are very well documented. I was in a program with a guy, and I had him give me the heart punch, right?
Right.
And I went down, and I'm selling it, and 6 people in my audience called an ambulance.
Wow.
So when people tell me, oh, people don't believe anymore, why are we trying to make them believe? That's what the job is. You understand? We have to make them believe. Like I said, even if it's for a split second, we have to make them believe in what we're doing. And sometimes it's not even necessarily to believe in you as a person. Like the Golden Boy Greg Anthony is as close to my real persona as can possibly be. I'm very genuine about what it is. It's a very thin line between the two. I think we would agree that Stone Cold Steve Austin is one of the greatest baby faces of all time, right?
Definitely.
But he was an exception to the rule. You understand?
Exactly.
Not everyone can be Stone Cold Steve Austin. And me as the Golden Boy Greg Anthony, I've tried to do some Stone Cold Steve Austin stuff over the years, but people don't buy it from me.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you have to know who you are and what works for you, like you were talking about. And like some guys just completely miss the boat on that. The guys that come and train with us at my academy, you know, when they're done with their training, I pick their gimmick. I pick their name. I do all this stuff because if I didn't, then I would have 10 Undertakers, or I would have 10 Roman Reignses, and I would have an AJ Styles, and I would just have all this instead of me looking at it very, you know, clear cut, like, no, you need to be this. You know what I mean? I think this will work for you. And then if you do that and you do it well, or you sell me that you can be something different, okay, I'll bet on you. Let's see. You know what I mean? And then it's sink or swim, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I like hearing that because, again, I think we as wrestling fans, we get so enamored with one or two people or whoever, and we want to be them so bad. We're stepping into it, and I love Arn Anderson, one of my favorite people in the world.
Yes.
And I know, like, oh man, I want to be able to cut promos like Arn. I want to do this like Arn. But like you said, if I don't look inside myself and learn to be the first me, who's going to care about the 1,000th Arn Anderson?
Yeah, it's very true.
That is a great point. So if I was going to try to get in the business, where would I go in your area to train?
So our school is located in Dyersburg, Tennessee, which is 70 miles north of Memphis. So, and honestly, there's no one training wise that I would recommend unless you go all the way to either Dr. Tom Pritchard or Ricky Morton on the east side, or there's a buddy of mine that does about 3-4 hours to the west of me in Harrison, Arkansas, Jefferson City, Missouri, that area.
Okay.
So like I'm in that Mid-South area, that area right there. And we train every Wednesday at 7, every Saturday at 4 p.m. So anyone that wants to come and train, there's some paperwork to sign, obviously. It's going to take me 9 months to a year to get you match ready, depending on how often you come and how well you pick up on things. And then I want you to spend another year with me to work on our shows and me polish you out and make sure everything's right. And then after that 2 years, I completely believe you'll be the best professional wrestler you could be after that 2 years.
Yeah, that's good to hear. So
it's a Pro Wrestling Mid-South Academy, by the way. I'm sorry. I forgot to put that in there.
So tell me more about the promotion side of things.
So, yeah, promotion is promoting professional wrestling is the hardest job, in my opinion, because professional wrestling is a niche thing. Even though we're a really large niche, you know what I mean?
Right.
We're still niche. You know what I mean? Like music. I just went to the Creed concert this past Sunday, and there was 16,000 people there on a Sunday night to watch Creed. You know what I mean? Creed's a great band. They're headliners. They're all this kind of stuff, but I wouldn't say that they're the greatest band of all time. You know what I mean?
Right.
But they still drew 16,000 people on a Sunday night. For professional wrestling to draw 16,000 people on a Sunday night, you have to be WWE,
right,
and have to have that kind of thing. So for me, professional wrestling is the hardest thing to promote. So for us, we're a small promotion. We run every Friday night in Ripley, Tennessee, every Saturday night in Dyersburg, Tennessee. We run spot shows at schools. We do birthday parties for kids. We do everything that we can. And, we, like I said, we're a family-friendly, Christian-based company. You're not going to hear anything that your 7-year-old daughter or your 7-year-old grandmother would object to at our shows. So we're very, obviously very plugged into the communities, and, we want them to, wrestling had a really bad reputation in our area for a lot of years. There was a lot of alcohol. There was a lot of drugs. There was a lot of guys with underage girls going on, that kind of stuff. And I took it upon myself after the TCW thing had ended to come back to my hometown, basically, and start this promotion. And that was my main objective, to clean up the image of professional wrestling in my area. Because there was a time period where I didn't wrestle in my own area for 7 or 8 years, because of all these things that were going on. And I would go to Walmart and people say, "Hey, what are you doing now?" And I'd be like, "I'm a professional wrestler." And they'd be like, "Oh, really? You do that?" They kind of like sneer at me a little bit,
Right.
But we've been in business. It'll be 11 years in October. Our anniversary show's in October. It'll be 11 years. And I really feel we've changed the perception of wrestling in this area. At least they know that we're different. You know what I mean? There's obviously other promotions around that do whatever, but we've separated ourselves, and they know that Greg Anthony, Pro Wrestling Mid-South, that we are a Christian-based company, and we're good for the community.
That's wonderful, especially this family-oriented. I always love hearing that, because some recent shows I went to, I just was able to zone out and look at the crowd and the family, and that put me so much in mind of my experience growing up. And it's like, it almost became, hey, it was like a big family reunion.
Yeah.
And the family's there, everybody's having a great time. Then after the show, the wrestlers were available for the fans. It was so amazing. And I love that it's coming back stronger, in my opinion. That yes, WWE is the top company, but you have different companies for different niches, and it's so wonderful that everyone has different pieces of the pie, and you can succeed doing your thing.
Yeah,
It's
I, and I
amazing.
and I really believe that like I said, we gear our stuff towards families and kids because our business doesn't any business really doesn't continue unless you get younger customers. So we gear a lot of things towards the kids, obviously, because I don't know about you, but I don't know too many 40-year-olds that wake up and go, "Hey, you know what? I think I'm gonna get into professional wrestling,"
Right.
unless they have a kid that's in professional wrestling, right? And then all of
Right.
a sudden, now not only have we created the kid as a part of our organization and really follows us, but the parents are following us too. So it's been a thing for us. And like I said, it's not all dollars and cents. It's about you know what is our impact on the kids, what is our impact on the community. Even like I said with the Christianity thing, like what's the difference in Sunday morning going to church and the preacher saying thou shalt not steal, and then us on Saturday night showing a heel steal a title, you know what I mean, and him getting reprimanded for it or him getting his comeuppance later that night or whatever it may be. See what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
we're still telling these parables and we're telling these stories. We're just telling them within the guise of professional wrestling.
That that is an amazing way of looking at it, and honestly, I never thought of it that way. So that's very good and puts me in a different mindset of
Well, but
what.
professional wrestling at its core is good versus evil. It's God
Yeah,
versus the devil. You know what I mean? So,
yeah,
and that's what I tell people all the time. When you're a heel, when you're a bad guy, you have to have some kind of unredeemable quality. You have to be a liar or a cheater or something that people look at you and go, "I don't want to be that."
right,
And
right,
then we need the antithesis of that by a guy going, "Hey, tell the truth, be honorable," that kind of thing. And you need both sides of that coin to tell a story.
of
Uh,
course.
I don't agree with people that say that baby faces are passe and no one wants to see that thing. And I was like, listen, I love storytelling in general, and I know that Captain America is one of the biggest baby faces and one of the biggest franchises in the world, and he's ultimately babyface. You know what I mean? So you can't tell me it doesn't work.
Right. And and I think anything can work if you are mindful of situations and truths. And I think a lot of times um, we as fans we get drawn in. It's easy to draw us in for this fact. It takes away from our reality, from
Right.
our issues for a little while to see, oh wow, okay, this person is this. I can connect with him because it's similar to me, or as similar to my boss. I don't like it. It helps draw in, and like you said, even if it's just for a second, we believe it. We're touched by it, and that's what I think makes wrestling in general such a great art form when it's done correctly.
Do you know what the two most effective, I don't want to say moves, but you know what the two most effective things are in professional wrestling for someone to see?
What's that?
Being punched in the face or hitting the junk. Because we've all been hit in the face and hitting the junk. So you as a fan or anyone as a fan, they know what that feels like.
Right.
Right. So like when we do those things in wrestling, they know, like most people have never taken a suplex. They've never taken a body slam. They don't know what those things feel like, but they know what those two things feel like. Now, if you can make everything you do, make them feel like that, then you've accomplished something. See what I'm saying?
That I can't even follow that up. It was simple, pure, and truthful. I love it. I love it. So, with that being said, uh, I would love for you to do any shout outs, promote your promotion, promote your school, and tell anybody and anything. Versus, I do this a lot. Just get out what you do and let the fans know so they can start following and liking. And if there is someone in the area that wants to try to become a wrestler, they know what they can do.
Okay. First, let me tell you guys about WFIA. It's the Wrestling Fans International Association. I'm actually a board member. They just put me on the board a couple months ago, and we're looking for members. There's newsletters. They're wanting to do a convention. It's a huge organization that actually Jim Cornette and Paul Heyman were a part of before they got into wrestling. They were a part of this organization in the 70s and 80s. And it went away a little bit in the 90s, and we got some guys that are bringing it back, and we're really, really trying to push it out there to be a really interactive community for wrestling fans. So if you go to just look up Wrestling Fans International Association on Google, and I think it's .org, I think, it'll take you there, and you can look at what you can do to become a member of that. Next, obviously, is follow Pro Wrestling Mid-South. That's me. It's every Friday night in Ripley, Tennessee. It's every Saturday night in Dyersburg, Tennessee. We're family-friendly, Christian-based. We have our own ministry, which is Genesis 32:24 Ministries, which is the story of Jacob wrestling God on the mountain, which is actually the verse that brought me to Christianity, because I went and looked in the Bible and said, I wonder if wrestling is in the Bible. And that's the first verse that I got to find. And that's what really led me on my path to being saved and our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. But like I said, Pro Wrestling Mid-South every Friday night, every Saturday night. We actually have it too where you can subscribe to us on Facebook, and you can watch our Saturday night events live stream, because we have the live stream available. So it's only $10 a month for it. Also, I want to shout out to Southern Illinois Championship Wrestling in St. Louis. Herb Simmons, I do a lot with them, and I'm a huge fan of them and everything they do. And my buddy Mid-States Wrestling, which is in the Missouri, Arkansas kind of border. They do both. Those two companies right there. So that's all I got, man. Everything else, you can follow. Like I said, you can follow me, the Golden Boy Greg Anthony, on Facebook and LinkedIn and all that other stuff. So,
well, one thing I will ask of you is, because I know you're on the Wrestling Society network site. Yeah. Please promote that more on there. We love to promote anybody. If it's about wrestling, we promote it. So I encourage you to make sure you start putting that out there, and I will be more than happy to help promote it and push it out there. I think that is great. Anything that's going to help more wrestling fans and keep the love of this sport alive, I'm 1,000% behind you.
Absolutely.
Wow, it was so amazing to have you on. Man, your story was so good and unique. Probably you are, especially this week, you are the second person that I've talked to that has such a unique way of that you entered the business. And that is just, it's crazy, it's funny, but I enjoy it. And like I tell people, wrestling has so many different avenues. Maybe you hear about one, but that may not be your avenue. Strive to be your own person, not the next person.
Absolutely.
So, Greg, I appreciate the time. We got to have you back to talk and tell what's going on new. Anything you want to promote, man, we will connect, and you have an open invitation to a Bears Thought.
Yeah, man, we've only scratched the surface, man. I could talk about wrestling for days on end. So,
well, definitely we will plan something for that second, and we're gonna get it out there. I again appreciate you and thank you for sharing your journey and spending time with us.
Absolutely, thank you, everybody.
So, guys, another wonderful episode of A Bear's Thought. If you want to be a wrestler, do your due diligence and do research. Just don't jump at the first thing you see. Make sure it's a credible wrestling school. Make sure anything you do your research behind. And with that being said, I am Professor Bear. This is A Bear's Thought, and we'll catch you in the forest on the next go around. Thank you so much.